It's a bit of a cliche, but a man's home is his castle. Our home is to be our sanctuary, shelter, where we can take off our social mask and just be in our privacy. But unfortunately, our homes are not quite as impenetrable as castles. An obvious breaking in or robbery is already bad and traumatizing enough, but to think our home might be infiltrated secretly, that we might have an unknown co-inhabitant behind a closed cabinet, is even more unnerving. Relatively recent infamous cases, such as a woman secretly living in a man's closet in Japan and its surveillance video going viral globally, triggered our anxiety, and even a new specific term was born: Phrogging. Actually, in Korea, where most people live in a modern apartment with not so much hidden spaces like a loft, cellar, or wall cavity, a case of true long-term phrogging would be rather difficult. But cases of mystery or secret infiltration do happen here too. Today I collected accounts of such phrogging and mystery intruders in our homes. Some remain a disturbing mystery, and some reveals even more disturbing truth in the end. So, here are allegedly true stories from Korea about the mystery intruders in our homes. As always, handpicked, translated, and narrated by host Anthony. This is what happened to the older sister of my colleague. Let's call her Eugene for the sake of the story. As a uni student, Eugene rented an apartment. The cheap old apartment was mainly occupied by students like her or young professionals on a tight budget. The location was quiet and safe, so she sometimes even didn't bother locking up the door. But since when? She started noticing her food going depleted quicker than in the past. At first, she just assumed it was her imagining it, until one night. She woke up from her sleep with a thirst. Her hazy eyes caught a silhouette of a woman checking on her. She was shocked, but quickly feigned falling back asleep without noticing. Eugene decided not to confront the intruder because she saw her holding a kitchen knife. A few seconds later, the intruder seemed to turning away, mumbling to herself, "She thought she's walking." And for the next 1 hour or so, she clearly made herself home. Taking a shower, making herself a cup noodle, using computer, and the nocturnal activity ended with the sound of the boiler cabinet door closing. Morning came after the terrifying night. Eugene quietly locked up the door of the boiler cabinet from the outside and went straight to the police. The arrested intruder turned out to be a senior student of Eugene's department. Being clearly short on money aside, she was notorious for being untidy and dirty. Eugene kept a good relationship with her a while, but her taking advantage of Eugene's friendliness and constantly expecting to lend her some small change or buy lunch soon became uncomfortable. Then into the new semester, she was rumored to have taken off that semester and couldn't be seen around. Who could have imagined that she was a stealth roommate to Eugene all the while? Goes without saying, now Eugene doesn't go anywhere before she double-check the lock. This story is from a friend of mine. He lives with his 2-year younger girlfriend. My friend is currently in search of a stable job while doing some part-time works, and his girlfriend has a typical minor office job. Living on a tight budget, their home is a tiny flat in rather run-down quarter of the town. That day, my friend was out to do his part-time, and girlfriend had a day off. Later in the day, his girlfriend wanted to go out, but couldn't find her house key. Turned out, my friend took both of their keys with him by mistake. It was to take just a couple of hours away, and their household didn't have anything really worthy of stealing anyway. So the girlfriend just went out without locking the door. She was back about 3 hours later. When she turned to the TV to turn it on, she noticed something. Some scribble across the thin layer of dust over the TV screen. And they were in Japanese letters too? She checked around the flat first. Nothing seemed to be missing or altered. She phoned my friend the next. "Hey, hon, did you come home this afternoon?"
"Nope, I'm still working. Why?"
my friend said.
"Did you ever write something in Japanese on the TV screen?"
"What do you mean? I don't even know any Japanese."
The girlfriend was alarmed and briefly thought to call police too. But there was no other sign of break-in or robbery. She got curious what was written there anyway, so using her basic knowledge of Japanese and the help from online dictionary, she looked it up. It said, "out." She got chills and couldn't stand being alone anymore. In the end, she went out and waited till my friend finished his work. When they came back home together, what was written on the screen was now wiped clean. Following are two very short accounts, separate but similar in context. Let's see what you think of them, what you expect to have happened. I boiled 3 corns earlier. I ate one while it was hot, and just now opened a pot in the kitchen to find only one left. I live all by myself. I looked around in case I had taken one out somewhere, and found a bare corn cob next to the stove. I didn't eat it in the kitchen. What the heck is going on? I'm sorry for the dirty subject matter, but please hear me out. I've been suffering severe diarrhea for the past few days. Probably I got a bad stomach bug or something. And just now I came back home from work and went to sit on the toilet the first thing. And what did I find? A big, solid piece of poop sitting in the toilet bowl with its cover seat opened. One, I've never ever forgot to flush after my business. 2, I haven't had a solid poop for days now. It's disgusting, confusing, and scary all at the same time. Do I have to change the key to my flat? Chung-hee is a university student. She lived in a small studio flat by herself near her uni. One night, she was already in bed, but was rudely woken up by a knock on her door.
"Chung-hee, it's me."
She realized it was the voice of her male colleague, Kyung-soo.
I'm sorry, Chong-hee, but I'm too drunk to go home.
Kyung-soo was quite close to Chong-hee, but not close enough to let him in to her room at this time of the night. She tried to persuade him to take a taxi or seek another friend, but Kyung-soo was persistent. In the end, she let him in and told him to sleep on the floor. Chong-hee was nervous to have a drunken man in her room, but regardless of her anxiety, Kyung-soo was soon snoring away, and Chong-hee too took an uneasy sleep.
Hey, Chong-hee, wake up.
Chong-hee was woken up startled and saw Kyung-soo shaking her up. She was alarmed and annoyed at the same time.
Chong-hee, I'm hungry. Let's go and grab some ramen at the convenience store.
Chong-hee was pissed, but it didn't seem she could peacefully sleep anymore, and perhaps it was better than to be alone with him in her room after all. So she came out with Kyung-soo. But where Kyung-soo hurriedly led Chong-hee to was not the convenience store around the corner, but the police station. What he said to the officer there shocked Chong-hee to the core.
Officer, you must come to this girl's place right away. There's an intruder hidden under the bed.
The police indeed found the guy hidden under Chong-hee's bed. The intruder was a homeless. He managed to sneak into her flat on a whim and decided to stay on, using her shower and steal her food when Chong-hee was out during the day, and hid himself under the bed overnight for the past 3 months. This creepy story, despite its claim being a true story, is just another variation of a well-known and widely spread urban myth. But the thing is, we can't just laugh and brush it off. Even though not quite as dramatic and juicy as this story, it does happen in reality that a person's home gets broken in or violated in the most bizarre way. In November 2023, for example, a widely reported case goes like this. A 22-year-old uni student lived by herself. The first warning sign was the security notice telling her that somebody logged onto her online messenger via her home computer. She normally used the messenger only on her phone and thought it odd, but didn't do anything about it. 2 weeks later, while she was out, she once again received the same security warning. What made her really alarmed was when she came back home and found her toilet seat left up. Being a woman, she never kept the seat up. She quickly checked through the flat and found a can of drink and her lip balm gone missing, as well as her washing machine stopped before the cycle was over. She checked the recording of her surveillance cameras around her flat and found a man squeezing in between the security bars of her window. The man was subsequently arrested and confessed that he broke in her place 3 times in the month of October. Or in November 2022, a 30-something woman lived in a studio flat by herself. There was some leakage in her bathroom, and her landlord booked a plumber to come while the woman was out for work. She felt a bit uneasy to let a stranger in while she wasn't around, and set a camera before she went out. When she came back home and checked the recording in the evening, she was shocked to see a man looking around her room and rummaging through her drawers. The woman promptly contacted the landlord, and they claimed it must have been the plumber, and they apologized on his behalf. But when the woman asked the contact info to the plumber so that she could file a report to the police, the landlord gave her wrong number twice and then claimed that they lost the number altogether. Because, it turned out, The man who went through the woman's stuff was the landlord's son. In July 2023, a man had to go away from his home for 2 months. He set a remotely controllable security camera before he left, but since he wasn't expecting anything, he first just set it on motion detecting mode. He turned on the recording option only after he got the first motion detection alarm. What was captured the second time was a woman, nonchalantly looking around his flat and even taking out some ice cream and drinks from his fridge. He recognized the face. It was his landlady. He promptly contacted her, but she kept trying to evade, at first denying ever entering his place, then claiming it was to read a gas meter and the box of ice cream she was captured holding was her own cosmetics pouch. And the following day, the landlady was once again captured entering his home, this time seemingly returning a piece of clothing, which was suspected she stole from his wardrobe during the first non-recorded break-in. In December 2022, a posting on an internet community went viral and later widely reported on news medias too. The poster, 30-something-year-old woman, came back from her holiday overseas and found her door lock changed. She reported it to the police, and when they managed to open the door, they found a middle-aged man just waking up on her bed. The man was homeless and claimed that somebody told him that the flat was empty and he could use it. He called in a locksmith to open the door, and apparently the locksmith changed the lock without bothering to check the proof of residency. The homeless made himself home in her flat while the owner was away. So, the urban myth is turned out to be more of a cautionary tale than a myth. So, do check under your bed before going to bed. I had a very close friend in my childhood, until he suddenly disappeared one day. Nearly 20 years later, thanks to social medias, I managed to track him down, and we reconnected. We didn't even live far away, and soon we finally had a reunion. We first met at a beer hall near his place, catching up decades worth of life apart. It happened to be a night of the World Cup game too, so he invited me back to his place to watch the game together. There was still a couple of hours before the game started, and so we killed time playing football game on his PlayStation. I scored a goal against his team, and already full on football frenzy mode, I jumped up to make some goal ceremony and hit my beer can, splashing the liquid around.
Fuck!
My friend screamed, not jokingly or playing rough between boys, but full-on rage. I looked at him surprised, and he himself seemed surprised with his own outburst.
I'm sorry, Actually, I'm a bit, OCD,
he said after a few seconds. And he talked about the backstory of how he got to develop obsessive-compulsive disorder and how it got even worse. Back when we were close, I remember him complaining about his parents quarreling often, but I didn't know how bad it really was. His dad got physically violent, and in the end his mother filed a divorce and went away with my friend far from the old life and her husband. That was why he so suddenly disappeared. But the damage was done already. His mom had gone a bit mad after suffering the constant nitpicking behaviors from his ex-husband, and she totally abandoned any cleaning, washing, anything related to hygiene and cleanliness. Their home became a mess, and it became my friend's job to clean things after her, to the point of obsession. He now had to have every jar on the kitchen shelf and every bottle in the fridge in perfect line, their labels facing the front. A crooked picture frame would drive him mad until he could fix it. But the neatness and cleanliness actually helped him in his career because he indeed kept his surroundings and work perfectly in order. His boss was so impressed that he recommended my friend to the position in the HQ in Seoul, and my friend graciously accepted the opportunity. One thing he didn't expect was the insane real estate price in Seoul. Trying to find a room that met his standard and budget drove him further and further out the suburb, and he finally managed to find rather old but well-maintained house. And in the first summer there, one night he came back home after a drink with colleagues and jumped into shower to wash off all the sweat and grime after the muggy summer day. That wasn't enough for him, of course. Though it was later than usual, he wouldn't skip the daily cleaning routine, starting from wiping off the dust from the top of the wardrobe. He added one has to clean from the top because dust should settle to the bottom by the time one finishes the top. And there, he found a mystery handprint on the thin layer of dust on the top of the wardrobe. It prompted him to look around his room, and he noticed things nobody else would notice, like the cosmetic bottle on the vanity turned just ever so slightly away, or something swiped over the dust on the TV screen. Problem was, he found similar subtle disparities again the following day when he came back from work. Somebody was here. But nothing was missing, and the changes were so subtle that nobody other than a person with an advanced OCD like my friend would notice them. From the following morning, he took photos of his room before he left for work. With the actual proof, his suspicion turned to certainty. Somebody was there and touched his things. He couldn't yet report it to police. They would think he was mad if he should talk about the lotion bottle turned 15 degrees to the side from where he put it in the morning. He got a day off from work. In the morning he put on his suit, polished his shoes for 30 minutes as in any other morning, and went out. Then sneaked around the house and re-entered through the normally unused back door. He hid himself in the wardrobe and waited. 4 hours passed, and it was passing 1 in the afternoon. He got hungry and wasn't so sure if what he was doing was anyway sensible. But then, somebody unlocked the front door like it was perfectly normal and walked in. Suppressing jumping heart, my friend stuck his face to the crack between wardrobe doors to see. It was a woman. Her long hair reached down well over her knees. They were long and dirty as heck. She came in the middle of the room and stood there with her head hung forward till the long dirty hair touched the floor. Then didn't move at all. For 10 minutes and then 30 minutes. My friend had to conclude she was no sane person. The clock hit 2, and just then, the woman slowly started moving her body side to side. The movement got gradually bigger, till she started banging her head all around, accompanied with weird screeches. With that, her long hair flew all around, touching friends' cosmetic bottles, swiping over the TV screen. The subtle shifts and changes he'd been noticing were because they were touched by those disgusting hair. The thought made my friend retch. The woman's face that was revealed briefly when her hair flew about showed eyes half rolled up and giggling lips like a maniac in trance. With a shock and tremble, my friend shifted his legs a bit, and it made the wardrobe door open wider. The woman's head turned sharply towards the wardrobe. Her half-rolled-up eyeballs slowly came back down till they met my friend's frozen stare. The woman didn't flinch. She stepped towards his bed, lifted her dirty fingers to wiggle and subtly winkle the corner of the duvet on it, and ran away, screaming. It was like a very deliberate act to wind him up, as if she knew all about his obsession and exactly how to drive him mad. He made a report to the police, but they never found the woman. Who she was, how she got the access to his place, how she knew about his OCD, and why she had to do such a thing. He moved out from the house, but his OCD got much, much worse ever since. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed another quite disturbing episode. I guess phrogging or secret invaders are not anyway a new phenomenon. The advancement of a surveillance camera did make it easier to detect, and in turn we became more aware of the discovered cases. Nonetheless, the thought of it is pretty creepy, especially because I'm rather a private person. Well, at least my bed is quite a low design, and I don't think a person could be hiding there. If you enjoyed my work, please leave it a like and a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. My channel brings you weird and wonderful stories fresh from Korean web communities, some paranormal, others more down to earth. If you are into spooky bedtime stories, you are in the right place. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Thank you. Until next Sunday, stay safe and take care.